Greetings from London, England, and welcome to 30 Minutes Promoting Unity and Diversity with Wanayran Angerer in Moving Cultures. Today, we continue the celebrations of the Global Week in regards to the Agenda 2030. And we are partnering with My World Mexico, an organization that has been doing an excellent way and excellent work raising awareness regarding climate change and their challenges. We are talking about the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. And our guest today is coming from a very beautiful country. And she is also a very beautiful guest, and she's from New Zealand. Her name is Sheryl Takayama, and she's our guest number 117. Sheryl, welcome.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. It's such a privilege to be here with you and a real honor. So thank you so much for the invitation. It's just so lovely to see you.
Sheryl, and for me, it's just an amazing experience, and I'm thrilled, very happy to see you after over 25 years because you were an exchange student in Honduras, and I have the privilege also to be working with you. So tell us, who is Sheryl Takayama?
Oh, look, well, I mean, a big part of my life was my experience going to Honduras in 1992. I grew up in quite a small town of New Zealand. So I'm sure many of you will know, New Zealand is an island nation. We're right at the bottom of the world, and we're a small country and a small population. Now, I grew up in a very small town and had a very, I guess, pretty simple life in those times. And when I was very young, I saw a young person talking, and she was an AFS student. And I went home and I said to my mum, I want to go to America. I want to be an exchange student. And my parents weren't so sure about that. But then I was so determined. So I got a job and I started saving money. And I really wanted this chance to go overseas because I'd never, ever even really been to a big city. So I was a really small town person. And then I decided, when I was looking at all the countries, I decided I wanted to go somewhere I'd never heard of, somewhere unique, somewhere new. And I was looking at the different countries and I saw Honduras and I thought, where's that? And then I saw that in Honduras they had some music schools. And I thought, right, I'm going to try and apply. And so when I applied for AFS, I put lots of it, how much I love music and singing. And I was so lucky because I got put in the Escuela Nacional de Música, this National School of Music. So I was so lucky at the age of 16, I got to go to Honduras and meet Wani. And I spent 1 year and it was just amazing to arrive in Tegucigalpa. I'd never been outside of my small town, and it was just so eye-opening to meet all the people from around the world, to see such an amazing country so different from mine, and to meet so many beautiful people. I love South America. I ended up marrying a Brazilian. Because I think I just loved the spirit. And I mean, Honduras is so different from New Zealand, but the people were just so beautiful. And of course, the music and the spirit. And it was just the most wonderful year. And it really did. It's changed my life. I've ended up doing more travel. I came back and I did my university degree in Spanish.
Mm-hmm.
I loved it. And then I ended up going to Japan and being an English teacher. So, so much of my life, this love of travel. And then when I ended up coming back to New Zealand, I ended up working for Tourism New Zealand, involved with a lot of tourists and helping promote New Zealand to international tourists and media. So I guess really that so much of what's happened in my life was really spurred on through this experience of traveling at such a young age and really living in a country and having that amazing opportunity.
Sheryl, you became like a ambassador of your country during your time in Honduras because you also help us understand the differences between our country and yours and brought into the table the discussion about indigenous people like the Maori communities. You also
Yes.
talked to us about the different gastronomic influences that your country has. And I think this is a good moment to also talk about those topics.
Yeah, well, this is the thing. In New Zealand, we are quite, we're a multicultural society, and I've always been really proud of our heritage. When the town that I grew up in was very multicultural, so I was a part of them. Even though I'm a European Pākehā white New Zealander, I was a part of the Māori culture group with singing, and we performed. And I know that when I came to Honduras, I was able to do some of that as well. So that's been a really strong part of my upbringing. And it's something that I think as New Zealanders, we are really proud of. The cultures are very much, especially where I live now in Auckland, the main city, it is a very multicultural city. We also have a lot of people from the Pacific nations. So, and I mean, now, of course, we also have a lot of immigrants from Asia and China and people from South Africa. So New Zealand has become, as the world has expanded, we certainly have a lot of cultures, but we have a lot of pride in our Indigenous culture. Every year we have a celebration called Matariki, which is celebrating the Māori New Year. And those kind of things, those kind of traditions are actually becoming more and more relevant now in New Zealand. Next year, I think they're even talking about making it a public holiday. So, the government are just trying to embrace even more how to, incorporate that into our national heritage. Because, yeah, it is a big part of what makes us New Zealand and a big part of our history. And certainly in terms of the, the gastronomic and all that sort of thing too. I mean, New Zealand, we're a farming nation. New Zealand, I remember when I was in Honduras, I saw a container of New Zealand milk powder, and it was so exciting. That's what New Zealand is really known for, the dairy farming, the meat, and the quality of our milk is really highly regarded around the world. So, that's a big part of our identity, as well as the beautiful food that we produce here.
Sheryl, you were talking about the indigenous cultural heritage, and that also is connected to the Sustainable Development Goal number 12. That is the protection of the cultural and intellectual properties of each country. Today, we're also covering this SDG number 10, that is talking about, 15, that is talking about the protection and the restoration of ecological systems. What can you share with us about New Zealand and their position in the protection of the environment?
Yeah, I think, for New Zealand is definitely part of course, there's such important global debate that goes on. I think for New Zealand, it's particularly important too, because back in the time when I worked for Tourism New Zealand, the slogan is 100% pure New Zealand. So that was going back 10, 15 years ago. So New Zealand tourism it was our third biggest income earner in New Zealand. Tourism is very important. Well, at least it was before COVID. Unfortunately, the New Zealand tourism industry is very suffering. Our borders are still closed. We in Auckland, we are in lockdown again. So, but prior to this, tourism has been very important, and a massive part of that is us keeping our image and doing the right thing by the environment. So I know from the time that I worked at Tourism New Zealand that within the tourism sector, there was a lot of accountability required, doing things sustainably, making sure that the environment was looked after. It's because our image depends on it. You know, New Zealand's whole image, you know, this is a really important part of it. And it's become a really important part of the debate now. Also with farming, that's something that's really in the media a lot at the moment as we look at the effects of farming, making sure that our environment is being looked after properly and that we're finding that correct balance between creating the foods that we are known for, the meat and the dairy, but also protecting the environment. So I have friends who own farms and they are very, very, I guess, visible in that space. And there's a lot of work going on at that government level to make sure that our farming practices are done properly so that, you know, we can keep our image. You know, there was a big thing that New Zealand did, you know, quite a while ago when I was young, was not allowing nuclear arms to come into New Zealand. And that is, again, a really big part of, I guess, our history of wanting to keep things, you know, clean. And that's why I think it's so important, because we have sort of used that as our image. And now it's really important that we keep walking that path and follow through, you know, as our population grows and as we move into the challenges of this century.
You have managed to have the possibility to combine different possibilities like culture and traveling, the possibility to exchange knowledge, also art and cultural skills. Let's talk about how living in one specific space and being surrounded with people from different cultures can actually make your vision of the world broader.
Yeah, I think, you know, for me, I was really lucky because although I grew up in a very small town, it was multicultural. So I had been exposed to, you know, Maori people and Pacific Island people. And for me, that was very normal. When I went to Honduras, you know, it was so wonderful to meet people from around the world. And I found it really easy to be able to, I guess, relate to other people. I feel, you know, I was quite open-minded. And I think a lot of that came from the fact that my upbringing was very multicultural. You know, and I think I'm really grateful for that, because not all parts of New Zealand are so multicultural. Definitely in our South Island, there's not as many Maori people or Pacific people. They've tended to be in the North Island. So I look now and I realize, because I grew up in a multicultural town, it really did allow me to have more exposure to that. So when I traveled, it was something that I was very, I guess, comfortable with. And, you know, this does come through with the food, with the music, the singing. And actually, I probably didn't even realize this until going to Honduras, because it also helped me meet lots of other people from New Zealand. And not all of them had had the same experience as me. My experience growing up as a European New Zealander was probably a lot more multicultural than many other young people in New Zealand have been able to experience. And I think I'm so grateful for that, because again, that's really shaped my ability to work with other people, you know, to live in Japan, to, you know, work with all other teachers from around the world. And just being able to do that, I think, is a large part due to being exposed to that. Even though New Zealand's a small place, it's wonderful to have our cultural differences, and that we do, you know, we are able to live together really well.
You also had the opportunity to move in a very smooth way in the social scale, because you could connect with people from very low incomes, people from middle income, and people who is wealthy. How this impacted your life, you know, to have the possibility to see different social backgrounds in your life?
Yeah, well, I think again, and coming to Honduras was such a eye-opening experience. I'd never seen poverty before. You know, in New Zealand, if someone thinks they're poor, it means maybe they can't afford expensive jeans. You know, if they can't afford, back when I was young, if you couldn't afford to buy the nice fancy clothes, well then, you know, but really, because we have a good system of social welfare, you know, I had never seen the poverty like I saw in Honduras. And I think in a strange way, it was actually harder for me when I came back to New Zealand than it was going to Honduras, because I realized I was different. And, you know, when I came back to New Zealand and I looked at maybe, you know, people who were complaining that they didn't have enough, and I knew what real poverty had looked like, you know, and I think that is so relative, isn't it, from country to country. What maybe a New Zealand person considers as poverty is very different to what other countries have. And I think, you know, as I've moved through life, and now I'm a business owner, so I have my own business, and a lot of our friends are also, we're business, you know, business focused, and we're at this stage of life. And I guess what I like to hope is that it gives me an appreciation of people at, you know, different levels. And also I think it's really important that we have that responsibility to look after others who aren't as fortunate. Yeah, I feel that, because I guess, and also with my husband being from Brazil, I've spent some time over there as well. And of course, there's, you know, large scale poverty in Brazil. So it's I guess it's been really interesting to experience the Western culture and our really very fortunate life down in New Zealand. We're isolated, we're an island. Even in these times of COVID, we've been able to, you know, shut the border and live quite a while, because we don't have other countries bordering us. So, you know, it's quite a different situation. But I'm, you know, so grateful to have experienced for myself and seen other people who aren't as fortunate. And I know that that has, you know, impacted certainly on me and how I run my business.
Cherry, you're talking about being an entrepreneur. You have been using all your skills, all your vision, and all the possibilities of experiences you had from early years, from your teenage life, your childhood time. And will be very good now to talk about the influence of your parents, your grandparents, and the person you are today.
Well, I think, you know, for my parents and grandparents, you know, really, especially my grandparents, they were really brave. They came over to New Zealand from England on a ship that took, you know, 6 weeks to get all the way to the other side of the world. You know, they didn't know what they were coming to. I mean, they had hopes that it was going to be a better life. But I mean, so brave to take that risk and, you know, come to the other side of the world for, I guess, hope of a better life. You know, that was my grandparents. And even my parents' generation, I suppose, you know, growing up, my mum and dad were born during the war. And, you know, they have grown up at a time in New Zealand, as I've said, it's not that it's a simple country, but my parents had, I would say, you know, a fairly, just a lovely, pretty simple, lovely life. But what their influence on me is that you can achieve anything if you want it, and you strive for it, and you try hard, and anything is possible. You know, I'm one of 4 children, and I'm the 3rd child. And when I went to my mum, you know, when I was only 12, and I said, I'm gonna go overseas and be an exchange student for a year. I mean, nobody in my family had done that. My parents had not traveled very much. They'd gone to Australia, a bit of travel, but never Honduras. You know, what language do they speak? They didn't know where it was. But, you know, I think my parents were so brave because they let me go, you know, and they supported me. They didn't just give me the money. They said, well, you know, you're going to have to work for it, which I did. But really, my parents have always just, you know, instilled in me. And I guess my grandparents too. My grandparents were successful. They had a business. You know, if anything's possible, if you work hard, it's not even about work hard, but if you believe in yourself. So that's what's always been with me. You know, when I went to Japan, some people complained that it was hard. And I just thought to myself, if I can live in Honduras, I went there, I couldn't speak Spanish. Oh my goodness. I left. My first plane trip was to go to Tegucigalpa, you know, and I'm like, if I can do that, I can do anything. And even in building my business, I work in weight loss. I'm a weight loss coach. I'm a nutritionist. And my business really is my absolute life's passion. And I just decided 11 years ago, I'd worked in tourism and I loved my job. I loved travel. I loved promoting New Zealand, but I always had a dream to work for myself and to be a mum who could be at home. So that was my goal. I wanted to be a mum at home and build a business where I could work from home and be there for my children. So that's why I went back to university and I decided, you know what, I'm going to become a nutritionist because I didn't tell you this, but after I came back from AFS, I gained a lot of weight. So I became very overweight. And so, yeah, when I lived in Japan, I lost 30 kilograms.
Wow, that's a lot, Terry.
I know. So for me, I lost weight and I was just, you know, very happy. And it also is part of my music story because when I gained all the weight, I was too embarrassed to sing.
Seriously?
I stopped performing because, you know, I did a musical because I love musical theatre and I wanted to do it. I did a musical and I was quite overweight. And when it came time to trying the costumes on, I was so embarrassed. And all the other girls were all, you know, theatre, beautiful, thin, you know, dancers. And I was, you know, I felt at that age, you know, I was only 20. I lost my confidence because I just didn't feel confident in myself.
Mm-hmm.
So then I didn't do any performing for years.
Sheryl.
So it really, you know, it had an impact on me. And then I went to Japan and I had a lot of space to work on myself. And I started exercising and I lost all the weight and I've kept it off for 23 years.
Bravo. Sheryl, you mentioned something very important. There is a self-esteem, self-image that doesn't have anything to do with being fat or being slim or any other thing, but it's how you perceive yourself and how also role models on society are requesting you to be. Let's talk a little bit about that because I think this is an issue that has been affecting a lot of teenagers and people in general.
Yes, absolutely. And, you know, that really was my absolute motivation to start my business because, you know, the dieting industry, weight loss, it's so negative. These, you know, I knew so many people who were, you know, doing horrible diets and not enjoying it. And I knew that actually I had been to a nutritionist and I really enjoyed, I guess, sharing my journey with another person, with a professional. and being accountable and all that sort of thing, and having the support of somebody. So what really motivated me was wanting to work with women and show them that actually looking after yourself and putting yourself first is what we want to achieve. And, you know, eating in a way that supports our body. So it's not like we have to be a certain weight. You know, actually the weight is almost irrelevant. But what I want to help women with is to find their bliss again, to be, you know, to get that confidence back, not to be the baby weight, but actually just to feel how nice it is when we put ourselves first and just make better choices for health, you know, for mental health, for energy, for vitality. And what I always say to my clients is, you know, really, we need to have fun. And I really encourage them to connect to the things that they've done in their life that gave them joy. For me, my greatest joy was when I got back on stage and was able to perform again. I mean, it's my apps. That's what I call my bliss. And so that really, for my business, I work with lots of women, and that's what it's about. It's about, you know, sharing the journey, working with somebody, and really about reconnecting, not to your best self, because you don't have to lose weight to be your best, but just to realize that it's about looking after yourself.
Yeah, and I think it's also important to remark that eating well is about health, your physical health, who actually trigger or control disease. You know, because we are at the moment facing a lot of issues related with health. They are practically, and I think in general, connecting to lifestyle and eating habits. Let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. Oh, look, 100%. And I mean, coming back to, you know, that what we were talking about earlier, you know, the environment, food supply, all of these things are such, I think, big issues for all countries. But, you know, I think particularly we have such a culture of overindulgence and, yeah, processed foods. And also, you know, with women working, a lot of easy, convenient foods that don't require cooking. And, you know, really a lot of the food plan that I use with people is just real food, simple meals, not buying stuff in packets. And all of this thing, and eating in a way that you're connecting, I suppose, with nature. And what I tell people is we've got to look at the effect that our eating is having up here. You know, when we eat the highly processed foods, sugary foods, it's like that instant energy, you know, it's not what we were meant to be eating, and it just doesn't work well for our hormones and our energy. So for me, it is all about showing people, you know, very simple way of eating real food, vegetables, protein, nothing complicated, and helping people realize that actually it's not hard and that it really does feel good and, you know, and better. But also, of course, the dieting industry, it's huge, and it has been for so long. So it's, you know, it's such a, I mean, especially as you said, with teenagers and bullying, and it's one of these issues that is just, it was around when I was young, it's still here now, and my hope is just to help, you know, one person at a time. And I love working with young people and hopefully setting them up so they can avoid this diet cycle, because it really is, you know, so damaging.
Yeah, and it's also triggering a lot of eating disorder situations. You know,
Absolutely.
that is actually very complicated, you know, to deal with. And it's only a response of loneliness, and you say not the capacity to cope, and so on. Sherry, but let's move now to one of your greatest passions, that is singing. And I think people will be very, very happy to hear you sing a song from the Maori community.
Well, actually, I wanted to sing another song. I could do two.
Yes, please do. Even better.
Okay, let me think. Oh, this is the song that I wanted to sing a little bit of when I thought about you. Ready? Tu bandera, es un lampo del cielo, por un bloque de nieve cruzado, y se ven en su fondo sagrado 5 estrellas de pálido azul, en tu emblema rumoroso, con sus hojas bravías escuda, de un volcán, tras la cima desnuda. Hay un astro de nítida luz.
Thank you, Sherry. That was a beautiful rendition of Honduran's national anthem. I know that all the people from Honduras that's going to see you in this interview, they're going to be absolutely delighted and happy. Thank you, Sherry.
Even now, whenever I watch sports and the Honduras football team is playing, I always have to stand up and sing my anthem.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much, Sherry. That demonstrates the love that you have for our country and for the people who were with you during your exchange experience. And now let's move to a Maori song.
What's a good song? I'm just trying to think. My daughter actually knows some good songs. She's been learning a lot of kapahaka recently. Gosh, I'm trying to think what's one that I can remember. Let me think.
No, it's okay.
I know lots of songs, but just try to remember the words now. What would be a good one? This is a very simple song that's often sung at, like, if you have an official occasion. E haere te mea, no naine te aroha, no ngā tupuna, tuku iho.
Oh,
Very
thank you.
song.
Very beautiful. Cheryl, we already reached the 30 minutes of our conversation, and I have to thank you from the bottom of my heart for promoting unity and diversity through your lifestyle, your philosophy, and also your activities. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And I embrace you from the distance, and I hope very soon to be able to give you a real hug with all these crisis stuff, because we've been planning for several years to go to New Zealand, and that doesn't happen. Let's see if we can make it soon. Sending you a lot of musical kisses. And thank you, Terry.
Thank you for having me.
They say bye-bye.